Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Beautiful Bald Eagle, and I'm sipping on some wildberry tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page, where you'll find additional painting perks, including this new perk that I have. So this painting is inspired by one of my Patreon members, by the name of Karen Williams. So thank you, Karen, for submitting your beautiful painting. But the new perk that I have is my Patreon members get to submit their photos that I will in turn turn around and select 1 or 2 or 10 to create into these great video tutorials. So the submitter will also be able to learn how to paint their own photo, but also everybody else gets to learn how to paint it as well. And in my thanks, I'm going to be sending this original out to Karen. So I really hope that she enjoys it. And I hope that you guys enjoy this video tutorial. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be working on a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you could certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, cobalt blue, burnt umber, which I like to call brown, green oxide, Mars black, deep yellow, and burnt sienna, which I sometimes call rust. And of course you can switch up those colors, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a standard number 2 pencil that I'm going to be using for some drawing. And then I have 3 brushes from my personal brush line, which is Michelle the Painter brushes. I have a 3/4 inch wide flat bristle brush. I have a number 8 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 3 round synthetic brush, and I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up as well if you'd like to. If you're painting along with me, you're probably going to want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a few additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link to my shop where you could purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the same size and type of canvas to the same type of paints and brushes, or you can purchase things individually, like brushes from my brush line. So that's there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be drawing an outline for our landscape. I'm going to be using my pencil. You could certainly use any drawing utensil that you'd like. This is probably one of the simpler landscape outlines ever in the world. So I'm going to guide you through a series of markers. We're going to connect those markers, and we'll have something that will guide us through painting this beautiful scene. I'm going to start on the left-hand side of my canvas, the top left corner. I'm going to come down about 2.5 inches, give myself a little bit of a marker. Then what I'm going to do is on the right-hand side of my canvas, I'm going to find myself about the halfway point, and then I'm going to come up about 2.5 inches from there, give myself another mark. I'm going to connect here to here, but I'm going to swoop it down a little bit and then come back up. So I'm going to take it and just kind of come over like this, and I don't do a super straight line, so as I kind of make these, I do bump my pencil a little bit so I can have a little bit of an uneven type of a line. This area up and through here is going to get hidden behind a cloud eventually, so you don't really need to be too concerned about that. Same with an area in through here. So nothing major, just something to guide us through the painting process. Then I'm going to go about halfway between here and here, give myself another marker, and then I'm going to go, I would say maybe about 3-4 inches down this line, somewhere in through here, and I'm going to connect these with just another line like that. And that's all I'm going to be doing for my outline for my landscape. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your drawing utensil away, take out a large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be painting a base coat onto the canvas. So we'll be doing our base coat for the sky as well as the land. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush to paint, but I'm going to use my small brush to pre-mix two colors, two custom colors. I'm going to be using a really soft neutral blue for the entire land area, and then a very faint cool gray color for the sky. So the colors I'm going to be using are black, white, and blue to create these custom colors, which I have already magically done on my palette below. So this is the soft blue that I'm going to be going for the land, and then this is the light gray. So I'm going to mix the blue first to show you how to get to that, and then we'll mix the gray. So for this, how I got to this was a whole lot of my cobalt blue, and then I took just a tiny bit of black and a tiny bit of white. And mixed it in. So what I'm doing is in essence, the black and the white is going to make gray, and when you mix it with the blue, you're in essence kind of desaturating it or taking out some of the vibrancy of the blue. So I take this and I just mix it together, and if it's still too vibrant or too dark or too anything, you just adjust it from there. But you want to add the black and the white slowly into the blue because you can't reverse them out of it, especially if you have a limited amount of paint to work with for the blue. So just add a tiny bit of black and a tiny bit of white until you achieve that color that you are looking for. So this is still a little bit dark for me, but I think it might be on a gray enough side, so I can just add a tiny bit of white to it. That's looking better. And then once I've got it into the color that I want, it's looking pretty good. Maybe just a tiny bit more black into it and a tiny bit more white. So I just keep adding gray to it to get it to where I want. There we go. That's looking pretty good. So that's the color I'm going for my blue. Now what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to just wash and dry my little mixing tool here, and I'm going to create this really light, cool gray. So this is mostly white, and I wanted to show it to you next to my white so you could see that there's definitely a difference between the two, because we're going to want to have pure white in other places on the canvas, so I want to make sure that the sky is not white, white, white. So what I did is I took a lot of white and added just a tiny touch of black to it. So this is going to bring me into a gray area, and then I wanted it to be a little bit on the cooler side, so I added just a teeny tiny bit of my land blue, something like that. And then this is just going to give me this really soft, cool gray. I don't want it to be blue, I just want it to be on the cooler side. So this works out for me. So once I've got those two colors, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my large bristle brush, I'm going to pick up the gray color, and I'm just going to paint the sky with that color. I don't need to do any fancy brush stroke, I just want to get the entire area colored in. I'm going to bring it right to my my pencil mark. You can even bump into your pencil mark. For me, my paint will show that pencil. If I've used a lead pencil, my paint will show that pencil through. So I can paint the color right up to my pencil mark, especially when I'm using a light color like this. You'll be able to see that pencil right through. So painting right on top or right up to that pencil mark is going to ensure that you've covered the canvas and that you didn't miss any spots or that there's no weird gap between your land and your sky. So now that I've got that done, I'm going to take the remnants on my brush, and with this little land section, I'm going to just paint a little bit of that sky blue or the sky gray right there. Then I'm going to pick up that custom blue, just a teeny tiny bit on my brush, and paint the top of this piece of land in through here. And I have the remnants of the sky color on my brush, so these are just kind of blending in together. And then I'm just going to, without washing my brush, I'm just going to pick up my background or my land blue and color in the entire land area. So I'm going to bring this all the way up to my pencil mark. You can get it as bumpy as you want, just go right up to that pencil mark so that there's no question whether or not you've painted your whole canvas. And again, a lot of this line up at the top where the land meets the sky is going to be covered by clouds or mist or atmospheric dimension, so don't worry if you don't get it perfect at this point. And again, I'm just using a left to right type of brush stroke to apply the paint. You could certainly use any type of brush stroke because we're going to be doing an entire second coat on this, so no worries about getting it perfectly covered. If you feel you want it to be super smooth, you can certainly just kind of make long, broad brush strokes, but again, in the big scheme of things, it's not going to matter because we've got lots of clouds and other details that are going to be incorporated on this, and we're in essence going to be doing another layer over the whole thing anyways that will take care of any of these brush marks that you may not feel look fully rendered and all that good stuff. And then once you've got this step done, we are going to be using this same brush for the next step. So you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish the land. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. I do recommend before you start this step that you make sure that your canvas is dry. So this is that time where you get to take an extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry, or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer and get it dry that way. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be adding minimal amount of detail to the areas that I feel are going to be visible behind or alongside the clouds and stuff like that. This is a mountain range or hills that are way far off in the distance, which is why they're so blue and have this cool tone to them. But I'm going to have lots of clouds floating by, so I don't need to overpaint. What I'm looking to do is just wherever I feel the peaks or the tops of these hills are going to pop out, like I have this whole part in through here is going to be really visible. I'll make sure that I've cleaned that up the way that I want to. I want to kind of darken some of this middle section. There's going to be a big cloud going across here, but I feel I want to darken a little bit of this so it feels like it's going down into a valley. And then I'm going to put an area down at the bottom with a little bit more detail that looks a little bit more closer to the viewer. I'll be using, in this step, I'm going to use that background blue. I'll also be using brown, green, and white. And I'll be putting a little bit of texture on what it appears to be like a hill of sorts down in through here. And then the rest of the sky or the rest of the land will be taken care of when we go to do our clouds. So I'm going to start up at the top and I'm just going to work my way down. I'm going to pick up some of my custom blue with a tiny bit of brown paint on my brush. So I have just an itty bitty bit of brown paint because I want this edge to be a little bit darker. So as I'm doing this, I'm just going to kind of tap in just these little kind of the illusion of some treetops or something up at that edge. I don't need to do much. I'm actually going to probably pick up more of my my original blue just to make sure it doesn't look too brown. The brown just helps me to deepen that tone a little bit. I don't need it to do anything more than just maybe look a little bit darker. And then again, from about here over is all going to be disguised and softened by some clouds. So again, not terribly worried about that. But if you do have streakiness or any areas in through here that you feel you might have popping through those clouds a little bit, just add another layer of your custom blue to get it to cover, and then you'll be all set with that area. So again, this is going to be covered with clouds. I want to just kind of, I have some streakiness up in through here that I know that there's going to be a little bit of a visible spot outside of the clouds. So I'm just taking my original blue and just making sure that I've got this area that I feel is going to be visible aside from the clouds is just nice and taken care of. I also am going to put this area a little bit darker. So this is where I'm going to pick up more of my background blue, but I'm also going to pick up a teeny tiny bit of brown paint. Again, not a lot of brown. I just want to kind of deepen this center area just a little bit. I'm using a circular type of brush stroke just because I know it's going to be out of focus anyways. This is just going to, again, provide me with a nice soft transition. And again, my background blue plus a teeny tiny bit of brown paint is going to go in through here. So really kind of like this little strip in through here, and then maybe down in this area. I want to make sure that I've got a good second coat on, because those will be in between those clouds. And then once I've got this, so this is looking pretty good in through here, just picking up some of my background blue, make sure this bottom right-hand corner is going to be pretty visible. And now what I'm going to do with this whole section in through here is I'm going to add like a little bit of a hill type of appearance to it. So I'm going to be using my background color plus green to set the stage of where it is, and then I'm going to put in little bits of highlights and add a little bit of a hill type look to it. So my background blue plus a little bit of green is going on my brush, and I'm just going to sit here and kind of tap this on so it gives it a little bit more of an in focus type of appearance. I'm going to bring this all the way up in through here. It's very, very subtle. Don't worry about putting tons of detail into this, because again, it's not important that you do, because it's really out of focus. The attention is definitely not going to be on this background scenery. It's going to be on your bird and on your clouds. So this is just getting the full scope of the picture in place. And then again, I'm still just kind of tapping my background blue plus a little bit of my green down in through here to give myself a little bit of a, I'm going all the way down to the bottom right hand corner. You could certainly bring yours however far you want. So that's pretty good. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of brown, and I think I'm going to go brown with a little bit of green just to give myself a little, maybe the illusion of some little treetops down at the bottom. Again, not a lot, and the brown will go darker as it dries. So this will give me that depth of this front hill getting deeper into the forest like that. Now I'm going to pick up a teeny tiny bit of white paint, just an itty bitty bit. I'm even going to wash it off or wipe it off on my paper towel, and I didn't wash my brush. So I've got a little bit of my remnants of the brown, the green, the blue, and now I'm going to just kind of tap up at the top of what I feel this little hill would be. So something like this. I've got my two big pillars coming in through here, so again, I don't need a lot in through there. Maybe a little tiny hint of it in through there. And again, hardly anything. Don't feel that you have to make this really detail oriented. This is just a real faint illusion that is going to explain to the viewer that this is closer to us than that is. So once you've got that done, and of course once it dries, you might find that you want to tweak it a little bit. Like I feel like I might want a little bit more brown and white. It's a little bit too green for me right now, so I just picked up a little bit of brown and white on my brush, and I will let mine dry, and if I feel that I want to do any adjusting once it dries, I certainly will. But this is looking pretty good right now. So once you've got this done, we are going to be using this same brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry this large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our sky and our clouds. I'm going to use my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm going to use are that light gray that we created. I'm sure I'll also use my custom blue, white, yellow, and brown. So I'm going to use that light gray to put another layer on my sky as well as start my clouds. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another custom light color. It'll be like a light tannish color, and we'll build clouds from there, and then we're going to build some great dimension on them, and we'll blend them in with our background, and it'll look fantastic when we're done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my sky and my light gray color on my brush. I am just painting a second coat on here, nothing fancy right now, just making sure that I have a good second coat and I have a place to build my clouds on top of, because I know that mine was a little bit streaky. I could see my brush marks, and this is just allowing me to get a nice coverage. And as I come close to my land, I'm going to start overlapping my my gray into my land, because it's going to end up being part of the cloud formation. So I can see here, this is where I kind of wanted this spot to be visible on the outside of the cloud. So I'm just going to bring this right down to those so I can keep those in front. And then wherever I feel that it's going to be, the clouds are going to be overlapping into the land, this is where I'm going to start to kind of use a circular type of a brush stroke and overlap that gray right into the land. If you have a ton of paint on your brush, like I feel like I have kind of almost too much paint on my brush, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use it in the areas that I feel that the clouds would be the thickest first. So somewhere in through here, I feel like that's going to be a pretty thick cloud going over this corner of the hill in through here, and then in through here it's going to be pretty thick coming over the top of the hill or mountain in through here. I also have a really thick cloud coming in through here, so this is where I'm going to start to move my way into the hills, and wherever you feel that your clouds are going to be the thickest, that's where you're going to put the most paint. So I've got a pretty big cloud in through here. I'm going to put it pretty heavy in the middle, and then what I do is I'm going to use this circular brush stroke to let that cloud kind of dissipate or thin out along the edges and kind of overlap that that land area. And don't worry about getting them perfect at this point, just kind of getting them where you want them, getting them to kind of roll across these hills. I like to, a lot of times, kind of let myself run out of paint and on my brush, and that allows me to have the opportunity to get these little thin areas that look really nice and wispy and have that airiness to them. So that one's looking pretty good. I'm going to put a big, huge one coming across here. So again, I got my gray on my brush. I'm going to put a big, huge one in through here. So this is where I'm starting with that heavy gray or a good amount of paint on my brush. And then I'm going to allow it to just kind of dissipate, get this cloud to roll on over where it's meant to be rolling to and from. So something like this will get this cloud started. And again, this is just the first layer to the cloud. I'm going to add another layer on top of it. This is just putting them where I want them, allowing for them to kind of overlap and start to float by a lot of this hill, making it almost look like it's kind of misty in some areas where these little kind of pops of the clouds just kind of almost fall below the big main structure of the cloud. You can even, again, this is where the pillars are going to be, so you could pop a little tiny piece over on the sides if you wanted to. I feel like this is going to come up and have these little kind of soft, almost like little puffy kind of little clouds somewhere in through here. And again, yours doesn't have to be exactly as mine. I'm going off of a photo reference and trying to emulate to the best of my ability the likeness of that photo, but you can certainly have fun with your cloud formation and get it to be as large or as small as you want. So this is looking pretty good for a start for me for where I want all of those clouds to go. Maybe just little pockets here and there. And again, I'm just using the remnants on my brush right now to get this softness to appear elsewhere and allowing it to show that all these little clouds just have these little drifty pieces about them. I think I want a little bit more up in through here too. And then once I've got this done, and these brushes, I'm using a firm bristle brush, so that's why I'm able to get this softness, and it allows me to kind of keep working with just that remnants on my brush in order to give these really soft, airy, wispy appearances to it. And then once I've got that done, I'm going to start introducing another color. I'm just thinning out. I've got some thick paint up in my sky that I want to get thinned out before I start adding additional colors to it. So that's looking pretty good for now. I'm going to go down onto my palette and pre-mix myself another custom light color. So I'm I'm going to put my big brush in my water cup. I'm taking out my small brush. I have pre-mixed myself. I'll call this tan. It's kind of like a really light beige color, and again I put it next to my light gray so you could see the difference of the two. On the tonal scale they're about the same value, so one of them's not much lighter or darker than the other, but this one is a lot warmer and this one is cooler. So what this is, it's mostly white with a touch of brown and a touch of yellow. So this is bringing it into this really light beige type of a color, and this is going to show, it's going to help me to add depth into these clouds without adding a lot of strong colors to take away from the focal point, which again is the bird and the bird. In my opinion, that's the focal point, the bird. So these are nice, soft, airy clouds. So that's the color that I'm going for. Once I've got that, I'm going to wash and dry my brush again. And just kind of, I bang it at the bottom of my cup to get that blue off of there if there was any left on there. And then just give it a good squeeze on my paper towel. So again, this grayish, or this light tan color, this beige that we're going to be using, you'll see how it has a dramatic effect on top of the cool tones. So I'm just going to put a tiny bit on my brush, and I'll go in. I think I'm going to go into. I think my sky is too wet right now, so I don't want to touch that. This is pretty dry, so I can start over here. So I have this color on here. You can see as soon as I put it on, you've got that immediate fullness that is being created in these clouds. So again, you don't, when you're doing stuff like clouds, it's not always about how much paint you put on there. It's about being able to control the temperature, the color contrast, the tonal values, all that little good stuff that you don't need to do much of to create a wonderful effect and a very believable effect when it comes to if you want to emulate photographs and things of that nature, where there is a lot of cool tricks that you can do to bring life into that into that composition. I'm going to bring some of this light tan over into this area as well, and you'll notice I'm not over painting. I'm not painting the entire area where I put the original cool gray. I'm not painting all of that area again. I'm just picking some spots where I want these clouds to look a little bit fuller, and that's where I'm adding this light tannish type of a color, and that's allowing me to kind of bring these different thicknesses into the clouds. You can even pop a little bit, that's too much paint on my brush for that little tiny area. You can even pop these little, add on to these little tiny sections if you want to. You can get creative with your cloud formation. Maybe you've got a little one kind of coming up in through here. Again, I'm going pretty similar to the photo reference that I'm working off of, but you can certainly make yours into whatever you want. I feel like this needs to have a little bit more of my light tan color in through here, just to get this to pop out a little bit more. And you can see it's a real fun way to add the depth into clouds without working too hard at it and without adding too much detail. This is just, working with the values and working with those tones and getting it to do the thing that you want it to do. I'm going to add a bunch of this up into the sky. So I just picked up more of my light tan color. Feel like I want to add this. I'm dusting my canvas over there, still a little wet. So we're going to go up here with this one. So just kind of adding this up towards the top. And again, I'm doing this just so I can get some depth within within the atmosphere. I want that the land to show behind it, but I definitely want there to appear to be this fantastic atmosphere happening, and that these clouds are just really lightly just drifting by and, you know, creating a cover of sorts on these hills, but I still want it to have dimension. So that's why I'm using these different tones of this light color in order to give that appearance. That's looking pretty cool. And if you feel like there's any areas that you want to or feel that you need a little bit more blending with that background, like in through here, if I felt that that was too much of a cloud, I can just pick up a teeny tiny bit of my background blue and start incorporating that back into it. It might look a little vibrant when it's wet simply because you're using it with a lighter color, but just you can kind of keep tweaking it, or you could wash and dry your brush and just kind of start back in those little peekaboo areas with that background color just to get those to intermingle a little bit more. And you could also add a little bit more darkness to your clouds too. So if you're going through this process and you're thinking, I think, you know, I like it, but I feel like there could be more depth to these clouds, you can always, I'm going to wash and dry my brush, you can always add a tiny bit of either brown and or burnt sienna to your clouds. And you could do it kind of at the bottom of them. I didn't say I was going to use burnt sienna, but I feel like I want to touch a little bit of burnt sienna and brown on my brush, just a teeny tiny bit. And this could give you a little bit of extra dimension at the bottom of them as they're just kind of drifting by. It's not really super evident in this photo where the light source is. So if you felt that, you know, adding this kind of minimal amount of detail would help to create either a light source or more depth in your painting, feel free to do so. And then I definitely will let mine dry and then look at it from a distance, see if there's any additional volume I want to put into my clouds or areas that I want to smooth out. But once you've got yours into a place that is satisfying to you, I'm digging this, you can we're going to use we're going to use our drawing utensil for the next step. So once you've got this done, I just picked up a little bit more gray paint of my light gray. Once you've got this done, you can put this large brush away if you can ever stop painting clouds, take out a drawing utensil, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be drawing an outline for our bird and the posts. I'm going to be using my pencil. You could certainly use any drawing utensil that you would like. I'm going to be guiding you through a series of markers. We're going to connect those markers, and hopefully by the time we're done, we'll have the outline of a beautiful bird and something that it's sitting on. You can certainly make sure that your canvas is dry before you start this step too, because it's easier to draw on a dry canvas than it is to draw on a wet canvas. So I'm going to be guiding you through basic shapes. We're not going to be doing any fine-tuned detail on this step. We just need shapes that we'll be able to color in during the painting process. So I'm going to first start with my posts. There's two posts that are kind of leaning into one another. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find myself about the halfway point up or down my left-hand side, which for me is right about here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down from that about an inch and then in about an inch. So I know that I've got dark and light areas to draw on top of, and for you guys to be able to see, I'm going to be using a white pencil in my dark areas and a regular pencil in the light areas. So this is my first corner to my first post. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to the bottom left-hand corner of my canvas and come in about an inch. I can connect these two. They don't have to be super straight line. I might even have this corner in a little bit more than the bottom one. I'm just going to connect these two with an organic kind of line, which means not super straight. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the right of that about, I would say, 3.5, 4 inches, and then just up just a little bit, somewhere in this vicinity, I'll connect here to here. Then I'm going to come straight down from here down to the bottom of my canvas, and let me just measure it. I might be going in just a little bit. Yeah, I'm in to the left about 1/2 of an inch, somewhere in through here, and then just connect these two again with a nice organic kind of a line. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the right of here. I would say almost about the same width that you have done for this. So let me just see if I'm giving you the right information. Yep, somewhere about here is where I've got my next marker. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come directly up from here and then in, I would say about 1 inch, 1.5 inches, somewhere in this vicinity is going to give me the corner of this one. Then I can just kind of scoot this over, connect it just below the top of that one, maybe somewhere in through here, and then I'll connect here down to here. So this one definitely looks like it's kind of leaning in. That's all I'm going to do for my posts. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my bird with, I'm going to start with 2 basic shapes, an egg for the body and a circle for the head, and then we'll manipulate those and get them to look the way that we need them to. So I'm going to come down here maybe about 1 inch and give myself the bottom portion of what's going to be my egg. This is going to be the tail part, and it's going to cross over this little corner in through here. So something like this will give me the little bottom of the egg. Then I'm going to go about halfway between here and the top of my canvas. So somewhere in this vicinity, I'm going to give myself a marker just so I can know that that's going to be the top of my egg. I'm going to have my egg kind of tipped a little bit this way. That's why I put the top of it is a little bit kind of to the left of here. So if I went straight up from here and then over to the left about 1 inch, that's kind of the top of my egg. And then I'm going to connect here to down there. So again, I'm going to switch colors of my drawing utensil so you guys can see. So I'm going to bring this in through here. I'm going to curve it back down like this, switch my colors so you guys can see like this, and then just connect it in through there. And then I'll do the same thing up on this side, bring this out like this, something like that. I think you can see that white on there, but we'll put a dark line right next to it just in case you can't see it, something like that. So that's going to be my egg. So it's a pretty long, narrow type of an egg to represent this specific style of bird. Then I'm going to put, so this is kind of the back of, or the bottom of the wings. I'm going to put a little tail feather right below here. So I'm just going to kind of come up here about 1/2 of an inch to 1 inch and then drop down a little tail feather, maybe about 1 inch below that, and then just kind of bring it up in through here. We're going to have the tip of a wing in a minute as well, but that's looking pretty good. As a matter of fact, let me just kind of put a little tip of the wing in through here, just a little pointy part out here. It'll make sense later, but we're just going to put that little point in through there. So now I'm going to put a circle for the head. If this is the center of my egg, I'm going to have my circle just a little bit to the right of that. And if you start the bottom of the circle, maybe about 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch away from the top of the egg, somewhere in through here, I'm going to have my circle about 1 inch big. So go about 1 inch up from that. You can find yourself the center and then go out about 1/2 of an inch to the left and 1/2 of an inch to the, or that's the right and this is the left, and then connect those with just a generic circle type of a shape. Doesn't have to be perfect, just something that'll get you started. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect here to here. That's going to be the neck part, and then I'm going to connect the top of the head to, well, actually, let me give a little shoulder first. I'm going to take this area in through here. I'm going to bump this out while I'm thinking about it. I need to give myself a little shoulder in through here. I'm going to give a shoulder in through there, and then this kind of curves up from this little intersection point like that, switching colors so you guys can see it, and bringing this out. So this is kind of a multi-curved line. I kind of brought it out like this, dropped it down, and then it kind of goes at a diagonal to meet where this little shoulder is going to go. And all of this will look much better when we later on. And then what I'm going to do, just below this circle, I'm going to give myself a kind of an uneven line. This is going to be the white head versus the dark feathers down and through here. So I'm just going to give myself a little jagged line kind of like this, and then meet it down to this little point in through here. Now I'm going to give myself a beak. So I'm going to come down just a little bit down this curve in through here, bring this out and down like this, and then just kind of back into the head. So if this is the center of my circle, the bottom of the beak is just a little bit below that. So that gives you a good point of reference. And that's all I'm going to be doing for my outline. We're going to use our medium brush for the next step. You can certainly make any adjustments that you want. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to also erase a couple of these lines, like this circle. I'm going to just erase that so I don't get confused during my painting process. So I'll erase that one. I think I'm going to erase my egg shape too, in through here, and this little corner in through here, and then this little line like that. That'll give me a good start to when I go to paint, I won't get confused. And then we'll use our medium brush for the next step. So you can put your drawing utensil away, take out medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the base coat on the posts and our bird. I'm using my medium brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, white, burnt sienna, and my light tan color that I created for those clouds. What I'm first going to do is I'm going to create a dark brownish gray type of a color that I'm going to actually be utilizing in the posts as well as the bird, and then I'll create that with black, brown, and white, and then we'll use variations of it with other colors too for each specific section. So I have pre-mixed myself my dark, well, I'm just going to call it dark brown gray, dark gray brown. It's on my palette. So right here is the color I'm headed for. How I got to that was a lot of brown and black, and then a little bit of white. So brown, black gives me this really dark, dark brown color, and then just a touch of white is going to help with my opacity so it doesn't turn see-through on me. I really just want this nice deep tone. I could have gone with my burnt umber, but I didn't think that it was going to give me the deep darkness that I wanted on these particular sections. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first do this post, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using this custom brown, this dark brown color, with black on this left side. I'll be using it by itself here, and then I'll use it with a little bit of white on the right hand side. So I'm just starting a wood type of grain texture on here, as well as adding a little bit of dimension. I just picked up some black so I can get it into this little crevice in through here. I don't want to over blend it. I want it in my head to look a little streaky, so it takes on the appearance of this what appears to be really weathered type of post out in the middle of Mother Nature. I don't even know where this post is. I've got to get in touch with the person who took this photo, because I'm dying to know where this photo was taken from, because it's just so cool how this post has to be super high up in the sky. No, it looks like it's just like looking down into this really magical kind of valley, but these posts, I don't know what they are. So anyways, I've got my dark brown right in through here. I'm now picking up a touch of white in order to give some lighter tones onto this right hand side. I'm just bringing it right to where that tail is. And again, I'm trying not to be over blending. I just want this to look like it is a really kind of weathered piece of wood. You can even bring some of this in through here. We'll do little final touches on it in a little bit, but this is just going to get us started. So that's looking good for this piece in through here. This next one over here, I'm going to pick up that custom brown again. This is going to be my dark side over here on the left side. This post is in front of this one, so I'm going to get it to go lighter and lighter as it goes to the right hand side. So I've got just that custom brown over the custom dark brown over in through here. Now I'm picking up burnt umber with a little bit of white on my brush to get it to go a little bit lighter over in through the right hand side. I might actually, no, I was thinking of picking up a little bit of green too, but I'll add those green kind of mossy tones on the next step when we finalize these. And then again, I'm just picking up white plus burnt umber as I go over onto this right hand side and getting this to go right in front of that one. And we're gonna, there's some kind of tying mechanism that is holding these posts together too that we'll do in a future step as well. But again, this is just the base coat for these posts to get them to look nice and have some wood type of texture to them. Don't worry about the tops either. That's going to be kind of covered a little bit with some mossy stuff, mossy, grassy, bird's nest stuff. There's grass on the top of these. I don't know how that got there, but it's there. So we're gonna incorporate that as well. So that's looking pretty good. Just kind of getting that base coat on there. Now I'm gonna hit my bird. I'm gonna just use whatever the remnants are on my brush right now with a little bit of white paint to put the base coat of the tail feather on right in through here. So it's got I got a little bit of brown, a little bit of that gray or that dark brown mixture, just something to give me a base coat on this little tail feather. I don't necessarily want it to be this bright, so I'm going to pick up some of that custom brown just to dull it down just a little bit. There we go. And then I'm going to wash my brush because I want to add a dark color to the wings. So I'm washing and drying my brush. I'm going to use my custom dark brown plus burnt sienna. So this is going to give me, that's my custom dark brown, and it will get darker as it dries, and burnt sienna. And this is going to give me just this nice rusty type of tone to it, dark rusty type of tone. I'm going to put more of the burnt sienna over here on the right side, and then as I go towards the left, I'll be using more of that dark brown, as well as I might bring in a touch of black too, but we'll see. Here's where I'm going to bring out this little tiny wing feather in through there, and then as I'm picking up some more of that dark brown color to go for my base coat of in through here. I'm actually going to pull this out like this, because this other wing kind of lays down a little bit further than that one, just the way this photo was taken. So something like that. I'm going to pick up more of my dark brown to get up in this neck region, and I'm just going right up to where that little pencil mark was. And again, this is just the base coat, so as you're going through yours and it's not looking totally awesome yet, don't worry. We've got plenty of time to make it look awesome. And I'm just kind of tapping my brush so I've got some good texture being created naturally. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black paint as I go towards this left-hand side. Get this just a little bit darker over here on the left-hand side. And again, I'm bringing it up to that shoulder area. We're going to create where the other wing comes out on this right-hand side in a future step as well. So it'll make sense that we have this shoulder here, and then I'm just slowing down so I don't go too far outside my lines here. There we go, that works. And then just kind of tapping this in, and then I will wash and dry my brush in order to do the base coat on the head. So the base coat on the head, I'm just going to do that with that light tan color that we created. That'll help me to build some beautiful highlights. We'll be able to build the yellow beak on top of that. You'll notice if you follow me a lot, I don't tend to use bright white until the very, very end for final details. So even on something like this where I know that the head is in essence going to read as white, I like to start with something that's a little bit darker than white and then just add all of those little details and dimensional elements on top of it. And then when I'm done, that's when I'll add that final little bit of white if I need to. So I'm just kind of bringing this right to my edges. You could certainly whip out the smaller brush to do this little beak, but again, I know I'm not doing any details right now. I'm just trying to color within the lines, which might be a bit challenging with this size brush, but we'll work it out. There we go. And I might have brought that beak down a little bit far, but that's all right. And then I'm just going to bring this right down to my dark brown. And if you overlap it a little bit, that's what's going to make it look even more natural. So don't, and my dark brown is still a little wet, so mine's kind of intermingling a bit, which is awesome. And then once you've got this done, we're going to be using this same brush for the next step. So you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our posts. I said I'm going to use my medium brush. I'm probably going to use my medium and my small brush. The colors that I'm going to use are my dark brown, black, white, yellow, and green. And if I use any other colors, I'll let you know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my rope in place that's tying these two posts together. While that's drying, while the first coat's drying on that, we'll go do some final details on the exposed parts of the post, as well as little grassy stuff on top, and then we'll come back and put a little bit of detail in the ropes themselves. So I'm going to start with my medium brush with my dark brown color that we created, and I'm going to put in place these ropes. So there's a part of the rope is kind of around both poles, and then part of the rope is kind of tucked in underneath. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to start somewhere in through here. I'm going to just give myself a, it doesn't have to be a curved line, but if you can give it a little bit of a natural, just a little bit of a curve, maybe even just on this side over here, that would be fine. You can overlap it a little bit outside of the footprint of your post. So I'm going to just bring this down maybe about an inch or so down in through here. You can even pop out a couple little bumps. That'll make it look a little bit more natural. And then I'm going to bring this back to this side. And I'm going to, again, just kind of bump it out a little bit, maybe bring this down about an inch, and then bump out a couple little areas where the rope would bump out. So something like that works for me on that one. And then I'm just going to color this in with this dark brown color. We're going to put some highlights and shadows on it, which will make it look a whole lot more natural and a whole lot more realistic than just this dark band going across, but this is going to get us started. So again, this is just the dark brown color, and you might not even obviously see it over here on the left and right where it's in this dark area, but because I'm bumping it out past the post, that gives me my cue as to where it is. Then I'm on this side, I'm going to put an additional little piece kind of coming underneath here, and then this is going to just disappear under here. So it'll be, we'll put it with different, a different way so it looks like it's kind of sneaking underneath that one. And then up here, I'm going to do kind of a curved line. I feel like I'm going to pick up a little bit of black. I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So I just picked up a little bit of black as well, just so I can show you and you can see what I'm doing. And then I'm just going to color in this little section here with these two. So it's going to make it look like this piece of rope or these strands of the rope go underneath here. And then these ones, again, I'm going to pick up some black so you can see these little ones underneath here will disappear between the two posts like that. And again, we'll put some additional markings on it in a minute, but that's a good start for that. So while that's drying, I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put some stuff on the top of my posts. So I'm just going to go for some little grassy, speckly stuff. So I'm going to start with a little bit of green, and I'm just going to kind of dot the top of this with a little bit of green. Same thing with over here, just kind of giving myself, maybe it's grass, maybe it's a little moss, not quite sure what it is. It looks a little grassy to me, so I'm just going to put some green stuff up in through there. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of what am I going to do here? I'm going to pick up a little bit of brown, yellow, and white. So a little bit of all three colors on my brush, give myself a little bit of highlighted area up at the top. I picked up a little bit of brown also, so it neutralized it and so it wasn't so vibrant green. The brown helped to bring it just into like a more natural type of a tone for me. And then I'm just using the little tip of my brush to give some little fluffy pieces of grass up and through here. You could, of course, this is a step where you could certainly pull out that small brush if you wanted to. I'm just having fun with putting this little fluffy grass stuff on top here. And if you wanted to, if you're going through this process and you're like, well, I want a little bit more depth in it or a little bit more lightness or darkness, feel free to make it into whatever you want. I'm just picking up a little bit more green and yellow, get this to give me just a little bit more oomph on that one. So that looks pretty good. And if it's too see-through and you can't see behind it, or you're seeing too much of your sky, just pick up a little bit more white paint, and that'll help the opacity so it's so you can see it a little bit better on top of that blue background. So that looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put some details on these poles. I really don't need to do much. I just kind of want to add maybe some little grooves, maybe just clean up. Like in here I can still see some of my background, some of my sky, so I want to make sure that I take care of that. Same thing with up and through here. I want the top of this one to be a little bit lighter and just maybe a little bit more detail and finessing. So I'm going to do this one first. I'm going to start with my dark brown color just to make sure that I've got all of my areas colored in that I feel are necessary. And I'm not going to be using long strokes. I'm just going to take it and paint in where it's necessary. So this is going to give me the opportunity to put these little kind of grooves of the bark on here. It almost looks like these were maybe tall telephone poles or something at one point. You can certainly imagine them to be whatever you would want. I do need to put a little bit of black underneath my bird, so I just wiped my brush off. I picked up a little bit of black, so I want to put a little shadow underneath my bird. So that's what I'm doing right now. Just a little bit of black, making sure that there's some good dimension underneath here. I'm wiping my brush off, just making sure that I can get this to blend out, and then I can certainly use this little darkness that's on my brush right now to give me additional little grooves in my bark. I can also use it as a shadow maker underneath here. If I felt I wanted more shadow underneath here, I could certainly add a little bit of darkness underneath there, a couple little extra marks in through here. That looks pretty good. I don't really need to do much to this one at all. I'm going to now pick up my dark brown plus white, which is where I got the original highlight. So dark brown plus white on my brush just to clean up this edge in through here. And again, just making some minimal marks in order to bring it to its final resting place. Make sure that I've got all of my areas attended to the way that I want, that I've got this as light as I want it in the areas that I feel it should be. So again, my dark brown plus a tiny bit of white. I don't really feel like I need to do a whole heck of a lot in here, but again, just making sure I've got it in the way that I want. Maybe just a little bit more lightness in through here, saving some little dark areas as if they are some bark, and then I'll hop on to the other post in a second here, and then we'll put some final details on this rope. So that looks pretty good. Now on this one over here, I think that I want to, I'm going to use this dark brown and whatever remnants I had on my brush to just kind of clean up this left-hand side, maybe a little bit of white plus the dark brown just to give myself a little edge to here so I can see it. That looks pretty good. And then I'll use my dark brown just to make sure, again, similarly to how I did on the right one, make sure I didn't miss any spots. This is kind of my last shot at the at the posts, so I just want to make sure that I've got them cleaned up the way that I want them to be. So right now, just picking up my dark brown with whatever remnants are on my brush to make sure I didn't miss any spots. So that's looking good. Maybe a little bit more underneath here. And then I will add some highlight in a minute, but I feel like I want to put some black underneath where the rope's going to be. So I'm picking up a little bit of black right now. Give myself a nice good shadow underneath here. So this is black on my dirty brush. Giving myself a shadow. I'm going to put a shadow right here too, which is going to show that the rope is casting a shadow on the post itself. You could even wrap it around that little edge. I think I want to do that over here too. Just kind of wrap it around, give it that little curve. That looks pretty good. Maybe a couple of dark areas every now and again in through here. And it's wood, so you can have these, you know, uneven little jagged marks. Maybe you even put a little kind of shadow underneath this grassy stuff up here so it looks like it's hanging over the edge. So that is about all I'm going to do for the dark stuff. I do want to add a lighter tone here, again, just to kind of keep it similar to what the photo is. So I'm going to be using, I pre-mixed myself we'll call it light brown because we already have light tan over there. So we'll call this light brown. What I did was I just took my dark brown and I added a tiny touch of yellow, just a teeny tiny touch of yellow and a little bit of white. So what I'm doing is I'm in essence taking that dark brown and creating a lighter version of it that is a little bit more on the golden side as opposed to on the brownish side. So somewhere in through here is the color I'm going to use for my highlight tone on this left one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring it down in kind of like these little streaks. Again, I don't want it to do anything other than look like lighter shades of the bark. So I'm just kind of using it in these long type of, I don't want to call them squiggly marks, but definitely allowing for, I have too much paint on my brush, just wiping it off, allowing for it to take on almost like this bit of a wood grain type of a look. And if you're going through this and you're like, well, it's just too solid of a color, or I wanted to speak to that bottom color more, just pick up some of that dark brown. Like this, I still want to have that highlight over here, but maybe I don't want it as light as that right-hand side. So I'm incorporating a little bit of that dark brown as well. And I'm bringing it right down to my rope. I am going to be doing the little details on my rope in a minute. So that'll help to clean that up. But I did bring my marks right down to my rope, and my rope can overlap that. I'm going to put a little bit of this lighter color down on this right-hand side. In the reference that I'm using, this whole area down and through here is dark. It's got a big shadow on it from, I'm assuming, the ropes of somehow. So we're going to just leave that area on the darker side, but I still want this to intermingle. So wiping my brush off, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that dark brown with my dirty brush just to get this all to intermingle. I think actually, I feel like I want to put a little burnt sienna too. Picking up a little burnt sienna and my dark brown to get this little different hue back over in through here. And then what I'm going to do, this is looking pretty good. I might do a little adjusting after it dries, but I'm thinking that that's looking as good as I want it to look. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wash and dry my, actually I'm going to switch to my small brush now. I'm going to do the little ropes. So I'm just washing dry my brush. I'm going to utilize black to start, and I'm going to put some shadows in between my ropes. So I just picked up some black, and this is where you can take and just kind of put these long, slender type of lines, and this is going to make it look like these are the shadows within the in between the ropes. You don't have to make it perfect. I was noticing on this that the ropes kind of overlapped each other, and you know, they intermingled with one another, so don't feel like you have to get this super perfect. But around these edges, if you can get it to give the illusion of it curving just a little bit, that will help to sell the story of this being a posts being round as opposed to square, but again, not super necessary. And I keep adding a touch of water to my brush in order to give myself the fluidity on my bristles in order to get these more slender lines. So once I've got that darkness in there and I'm happy with that, I'm going to put more black underneath here as well, just to make sure that this whole corner disappears underneath there. Now I'm going to pick up my my dark brown plus a little bit of white, and you could certainly use this tan too, but I think I want it to look a little bit different than that, so I'm just using my dark tan. Oh, you could use dark tan, burnt sienna, and white. Dark tan, burnt, or dark brown, burnt sienna, and white, just to give it a little bit different of a tone. And then I'm just going to kind of streak in these little bits of highlights on these ropes. So this is burnt sienna, dark brown, and white, giving me these little highlights on these ropes. And again, nothing super dramatic, but if you can get it to kind of just streak in and make it look kind of natural, awesome. More so on this right hand side than on the left hand side. That'll make it look nice and natural. And then once you've got that done, we're going to use this same small brush for the next step. So you can fiddle with this all you want. I'm going to put just a little bit over here on this edge and through here. So fiddle with this all you want, and then you can wash and dry this small brush and get ready for the next step. Alright, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish the head. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors I'm going to use are white, yellow, brown, black, and probably that the light brown color that we created for this log or this post. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be creating the beak with yellow. Oh, I'll probably use some burnt sienna too. The beak will be done with yellow, maybe a little burnt sienna, brown, and white. The beak definitely comes into the face, and the eye sits right kind of at the top line of the beak. So we'll be creating a nice dark eye with a little nostril in the beak, and then we'll create some shadow on the side of the neck in order to make it look like the head is turning, and we'll create the beautiful feathers along the shoulder area and the top of the head. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to start with a little bit of that light brown color that we created for the log, so I can get kind of a base shape of where I want that head to be separated from kind of the shoulder area. So I'm going to go somewhere in through here with that light brown type of a color. Now I'm going to pick up on my dirty brush that light tan color that we used in the clouds, as well as the base color for the head itself, and just get this to kind of blend in through here. So again, this just gets me started with a transition from this shoulder area into the head area. So that's looking pretty good. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that light brown color, just to give myself a little bit of separation between some of these feathers along this neck area in through here, and maybe a little shadow down on this back side in through here. Then I'm going to just wipe my brush off. I'm picking up some more of that light tan color in order to get these shoulder feathers to start to emerge as a brighter tone. I will put a little white highlight on them in a bit, but right now, again, just working my way towards white as opposed to starting with white and making everything the same value. So this helps to build that brightness to it. You can even overlap this a little bit into that neck area. So that looks pretty good. I'm also going to use a little bit of this light tan at the top of the head in through here. Again, just working my way towards the white. I am going to bring out a couple of little bumps along this back edge of the head in order to make it look like there's a couple of like little feathers popping out along there. So that'll give you, again, a little bit more dimension to it. Making sure that I've got this underneath here. That looks pretty good. All right, so now I'm going to wash my brush, and I'm going to put yellow on my brush. So a little bit, just a teeny tiny bit. It's not a big area we're covering, so just a little bit of my yellow right on top of that lighter color will definitely be very vibrant, and I'm going to bring it into the face. So I would say maybe about a third to halfway into the face at the top, and then just kind of get it to transition into that tan color. Again, doesn't have to be anything really powerful or really far into the head, just something that's going to give you that yellow effect. Now I'm going to pick up a bit of burnt sienna and brown on my brush, just a itty bitty bit. I'm going to put at the bottom of the beak in through here to give myself the shadow at the bottom, and also maybe where the beak opens. I mean, we're doing such a teeny tiny area. There's not going to be a whole lot of detail. I'm going to put a little dot for the nostril in through there. I'm now going to wash and dry my brush because I'm going to put the eye on before I put the highlight on the beak. So I'm washing and drying my brush. I'm going to pick up a teeny tiny bit of black paint, just an itty bitty bit on the tip of my brush, and I'm going to put it kind of directly in line with kind of that nostril area. You can put just this kind of long, curvy type of line, and the eye is going to sit right in that area. Again, you're not going to see a whole bunch of detail because of the distance that this bird is away from the viewer. So I wouldn't worry about doing tons and tons of detail to it, but you can certainly just kind of put that eye on there. I'm going to now pick up or wipe my brush off. I'm going to pick up a little bit of yellow and white just to give myself that iconic kind of color within that eye. Again, I'm just kind of hardly dotting it. You don't really need to do much at all. Just, you know, something that'll appease your painterly eye. I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put a little bit of white paint on my brush to give myself a highlight on the beak. So there's white paint on my brush right now. I'm bringing it along the edge of the beak and the top side of the beak. And then I'm going to kind of blend it in through here. That's looking pretty good. I feel like I want a little bit more of an orange tone to the beak. I'm going to pick up yellow and burnt sienna. I feel like it's a little bit too vibrant right now, so I just picked up a little bit of yellow and burnt sienna to get that in a little bit more and just a little bit more underneath that eye. That looks good. There we go. That makes me happy. And I'm also going to pick up a little bit more of my tan or that light brown color in order to feel like I want this to be a little bit darker in through here to add a little bit more dimension behind this beak area. So I'm just kind of tapping it in as if it is the little feathery feathers. And of course, as I'm doing this, you can see that the shoulder is popping out a little bit more and maybe a little bit more behind this eye in through here. That eye might be a little bit too big, I'm thinking. I'm going to pick up a little bit of white so I can kind of make this just a little bit. Yeah, that looks better to me. And then I'm going to put some white on top of the head so I can get my vibrant white on top of this head in through here and get it to go right into that beak. Maybe my eye needs to be a little bit closer to that beak. I'm going to adjust it a little bit in a second here, but I'm just picking up white, heavy white, and just kind of tapping it so I can get that real brightness onto it that's representational of the feathers on the top of this head. And oh, that's looking pretty good, but I feel like I want a little bit more on that eye. I'm picking up a touch of my dark brown, just going to bring this a little bit closer to that beak. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Maybe this hole goes a little bit up and through here, and just making these little adjustments. I'm sure that they're not really that necessary, but picking up a little bit more white, just get a little bit more highlight on the touch of that beak. And then I would let mine dry. I would probably let it dry for a minute, maybe fiddle with it a touch more, but I'm thinking that that's pretty good. Maybe a touch more white on this shoulder in through here. And then we're going to use this same brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, I'm popping a little bit of white right on this shoulder in through here, or this neck area. Once you've got this done, you can wash and dry this small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish the wings and the feathers. I'm using my small brush. The colors that I'm going to use are my dark brown, burnt sienna, white, black, and if I use any other colors, I'll let you know. So what I'm going to do is I'll most likely start with my little tail feather. Just make sure it's got enough shadow from the wing and as much detail as I want in it. And then I'm going to work my way from the dark to the light. So I'm going to have little shadows I'm going to incorporate underneath the wing feather. So like this side wing here kind of lays over in this area. So I'll put some shadow underneath what are the wing feathers, and then it just kind of disappears off into this left hand side. So I'll just be creating these little bits of shadows and highlights to give the illusion of some dimension in those feathers, especially the ones down in through here. And then maybe we'll highlight a little bit more of the shoulder areas so we can really get that impression that they're up in the air. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to do this little tail feather. So I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of my dark brown, which I think I said I was going to use that color. I can't remember. It's amazing how quickly things escape my head. I'm like, what colors did I tell them I'm going to use? So I'm going to put a little bit of shadow right underneath this this wing, right onto the tail feather, and then just kind of pull it down. You can even separate a couple of these little feathers if you wanted to on the tail feather with a darker version. So you could just keep, you know, picking up that dark brown and just kind of incorporating these little bits of darker tones right up towards that top and or right underneath some of these little feathers or in between them. And that's what's going to make it look nice and natural over on that side. On this right-hand side where I feel it's hitting the light a little bit more, you can pick up, I'm just going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel. I'm going to pick up some of that tan, the light tan that we used for the clouds, and just kind of incorporate a little bit of extra highlight into those little tips, something like that. If you can see a little sliver over here, great. And that's all I'm going to do for that. I guess you could use a little bit of burnt sienna if you wanted it to have a little different tone to it. You could certainly add a touch of burnt sienna to it, which I'll be incorporating that a little bit in other areas as well, but nothing much, just a little to give a little hue of something in through there. So that I want that bottom part to match the top part, so I need a little more burnt sienna up in through here. Hardly any, just a teeny tiny bit. Just, there we go. And a little bit of water because that was too much. There we go. Just dull it down just a little bit. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I just rinsed my brush. I'm putting some black paint on my brush in order to give me my dark shadowy areas as well as areas in between these feathers. So I definitely have this wing in through here that I want to contend with. I feel that it would be kind of like, I've got this piece here which is from this wing, but I feel like there'd also be this wing plus another little piece coming out over here. So maybe I take this and give myself a little piece in front like that. I can take my black and kind of underline some of, you know, these little edges of this wing kind of coming up in through here, and I'm just kind of curving the bottom. I've got a little bit of water on my brush in order to control what I'm doing with this paint. I kind of feel like there's supposed to be something, part of this wing identified in through here. So again, this is just a little bit of watered down black on my brush, going to kind of separate that wing out from the rest. But again, this is really dark over in through here. So although I've separated that out nicely, what I also have got to take care of is the dark shadows between all of these feathers as well. So I'm going to continue on this quest with the black on my brush, and knowing that these feathers kind of are longer and kind of just lay in like this, I can just use this black on my brush right now and bring in all of these dark tones over on this left hand side. But again, I don't want to overpaint, so I'm really just gonna leave some of those some of that dark brown paint showing, and I'm kind of giving myself these little curved edges every now and again. That's going to imply the ends of the feathers as they're just laying on top of each other. But again, not a whole heck of a lot of detail, because this is the darker side. I just want to leave a little bit of those brownish tones popping through every now and again. So again, just using this black with kind of a curved type of brush stroke. As I get up in through here, I'm going to take this black and I'm going to put a little bit of shadow underneath the neck feathers in through here. So this is going to give these neck feathers their own kind of identity as they're meeting the body, and you can certainly separate that out a little bit more if you wanted to, and then I can just get this black to just kind of fade down into the brownish tone that we had created earlier. So I'm digging the way that that's looking. Now I just want to make sure that I have this wing fully kind of executed, and make sure that I've got some spots in through here that don't look like they're fully painted to me, so I'm going to hit them with another layer, and we'll add a little bit of highlight on the edges. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to pick up that dark brown color in order to just hit all of my little spots on this left hand side that I feel are not fully painted, and this is just these little peekaboo spots that I can see some of my background through. And this is also a time where if you felt that you needed any additional kind of information, maybe more of this color, you could certainly add it if you felt that you needed more of it. I'm thinking that that's looking pretty good. I'm digging this whole side right now, so I don't know how much more I'm going to actually do to that side. I do want to have this whole area kind of developed a little bit more, so I think actually I'm going to pick up a touch of black paint just to give myself just a little bit more tonal or textural elements in this neck area in through here. So I just picked up a little bit more black just to give myself a little bit more in through there. So now I want to just kind of finish this wing and the highlight area. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to be using my dark brown, burnt sienna, and white. So dark brown, a little bit of burnt sienna, and a touch of white. And I'm going to create these kind of tips to these feathers in through here. And you might find that, again, you want yours lighter or darker, or you feel that, you know, the representation of them being really light on this side is not working for you. You know, you got to just go with what is what your brain allows you to do during the painting process. I know for me, I used to kind of struggle with the high contrast as I was painting, but the more I developed kind of my confidence level and really kind of was able to read what what I was seeing in something, especially in photographs, I'm more confident with these high contrast shifts as I go through a painting. I'm picking up my dark brown plus white right now in order to bring a little highlight to the edge of this wing in through here, trying to keep some of those burnt sienna little tones, but you can see how much lighter I'm making this wing than I am back here, simply because that's what I'm seeing in the in my photo reference, and I'm trying to emulate what I see. So don't be afraid as you're going through your process of trying to depict something that you're seeing. If it's telling you, or if it's showing a light color and your brain is like, it's not supposed to be a light color, try and just trust that that reference, and you'll be amazed once you start trusting what you're seeing. You'll be amazed at how much more you can elevate your paintings into a more realistic place. Again, I'm using my burnt sienna, my brown, and white right now in order to add these little bits of highlights over on this shoulder. I created a little bit of a shoulder in through here just by using a little bit of highlight. I'm just tapping in a little extra in through there. It's looking pretty fancy to me. I think that this one stroke right here might be a little bit too bold, so I just picked up a little bit of my dark brown just to get it a little bit more subdued. And then I would just let mine dry at this point. I'm feeling pretty confident as to where I've brought it, but I'm also standing this close to it. So there may be aspects of it that I want to fiddle with a little bit once I see it dry and once I step my face away from it a little bit. But you can certainly fiddle with yours as much as you want to. We're going to be using this small brush for the next step, and I just kind of keep fiddling with these edges over in through here, maybe, you know, illuminating them just a little bit more over on this right hand side. And then I'm going to be like I said, I'll use this same small brush for the next step if I can ever stop my my feathers now. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry this small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going to be using my small brush. I'm going to be using black paint. I like to sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date. You could make up a fun symbol as your identifying mark. Whatever works for you is up to you, because it's your painting and you get to sign it however you would like. And that's going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a beautiful, majestic bird, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.